So I was having a particularly hard day when I got my email from Don saying, "Hey, Grant, you want to talk at the meeting?" And so what was on my mind at the time was what was happening today. So I'm at Lehigh Valley Health Network, which has its origins as a place that was founded because the Leonard Parker Poole decided he wanted healthcare in Allentown so people didn't have to go to New York City or Philadelphia for their healthcare. So founded in the community and sort of that mindset. My bad day started with the week previous notification that we have to lay off a whole bunch of people because of financial issues, restructure management, or the management structure in the organization. Including as a chair of the department, having to basically be told anyone with this job title is losing their job. And then I said, but I can't lose that person with that job title, which isn't the job title you said, because I thought they were safe. And they said, make a trade. Wow. And so really literally making choices over people's jobs was what I was doing. So I had a meeting with an esteemed colleague, making plans. And then 1 hour later, I get a text informing me that there's going to be cuts the next day. The very next day, then I had to go find somebody literally in the stairwell and say, and they had no idea they were about to lose their job. And I said, you need to go to HR. She goes, why? I said, well, she had just come from a meeting where she was informed that someone else was losing their job, and she was all devastated and in tears about it. And I said, well, you just went to a meeting where people were losing their jobs, and unfortunately it looks like you're also going to be losing your job, so you need to go to HR. So then I got my email from Don. Okay. So just to give you some sense of, and I'm thinking, boy, did I sign up for this? You know, this is not what I thought being a chair of a department was like. So, and I'm managing, meanwhile, I'm on the phone with a person trying to get them to come in as a physician. I'm recruiting people. I'm trying to develop new programs, dealing with quality improvement and process improvement and teamwork development. And I'm like, wow, I got all this stuff going on. This is hard to manage everything. And then I thought, and then there's a lot of pressure in that milieu. A lot of pressure on productivity and volume, because we are, unlike some people in the room, we're mostly fee-for-service. Although it's interesting, because I did not know that Palo Alto Medical Foundation, she's not here, is PPO and not at all capitated, which was, I thought, like, small amount, but just very, yeah. So just different, yeah. So I was like, wow, really? You know, I'm thinking Kaiser, you know, capitation.
ACO, it's a mix.
So, but that's not our world, and so I'm constantly balancing, trying to figure out, okay, our revenue's down, we're a nonprofit, we don't have revenue, we don't have margin, no mission, you know, that kind of thing, and then I have to balance all the burnout stuff, and how do I get people to do this? And I thought, I was having a conversation with people, and and I thought about something I remember watching as a kid as a great analogy for what we do. So let's see if I get this right. All right. So okay, just watch the clip here. Okay, these are the doctors, and that's the chair, and clinic's about to open. All right, clinic is opening. The doctors they're interns. They're a little bit worried about it. Okay, we got it. Yeah, so we know how to do this. You know, manage the blood pressure. We got a hang on this. Management says, oh, your productivity is pretty good. You're doing a great job. We're going to increase the visit frequency because you need more RVUs. All right, here they go. And they're kind of, yeah, we got it. No problem. This is kind of fun. We got the risk of it. All of a sudden, wait a second. How do we do this? All right, so Lucy's starting to eat them, stuff them in her shirt, and Ethel's like picking up on the same idea, right? So they do this, right? And they're managing somehow, even though they have a job, they know what it is. All right, okay. And so it's just, you've all seen this clip, right? But you haven't thought about it in terms of healthcare before. All right. Arbys, visits, doctors, patient care, revenue. And all of a sudden they hear the boss is coming in, they say, oh, wait, good, boss is coming, boss is coming. You know, get our charts signed, okay? Get all your charts done, inbox taken care of, quick, hurry. So we don't get into trouble. All right. And the boss is pretty clueless about all that just went on. Wow, you guys are doing a great job. Okay, speed it up. and so doesn't that feel like sometimes what our fee-for-service world is, and what we deal with on a daily basis? So I kind of thought that was almost more apropos than the spinning plate thing, because what did I do?
It'll just take a second.
Okay, so there it goes. Okay, so it just struck me that was what we were doing, and is that sustainable? We laugh at it, but it hits home in a different way than. Okay, so I'm going to share some numbers because the numbers tell a story of a fee-for-service world in stress. And so some of these numbers I got directly. I sat next to our CEO at a medical executive meeting and had a long conversation with him. I said, isn't it about the insurance contracting? That's why we're suffering. And he pretty much said, yeah, but there's nothing we can do about it. So we have to live anyway. Because he's a nice guy, he's an ER doc, and he's basically says, we need to get away from fee-for-service. We need value-based care. We need to do the right thing and not worry about the volume, because that's not the right way to approach it. But by doing so, we shoot ourselves in the foot at the same time in our organization. So some numbers. 178,000 versus 112. Anyone want to take a guess at what that number is?
Physician support.
Yeah, you're right. So 112 is the median physician, primary care physician support, family physician support, investment, subsidy, if you will, if you want to think about it like that, for family medicine. 178 is our number locally. We have a new CFO, nice guy, came from the for-profit area, and I met with him twice, took him out to lunch, figured it's a good idea for him to for me to educate him about family medicine and our value to the network. And he's like, Grant, how come we have to spend so much per physician compared to other specialties? And so I have to think about in the next year how to manage. And the things come in there like rent and benefits and staff support and supply, but I have to figure out how to decrease that number. Whether or not it's a real thing that matters, but if I don't, they're going to do it for me. So that's kind of one of my spinning plates. Okay, the next number. Anyone have any idea what the next two numbers? 58,000 versus 18,000. It's been touched on today, so let's see if some numbers. Okay, 58,000 is the median net take-home pay in the United States. Okay, 18,000 is the median insurance premium. So it's about 1/5 of the net income, and if you think about that, the graph with the escalating cost of healthcare, it's a huge number. So healthcare isn't really affordable to our patients, really, if you think about it. So, and that's the stark reality where we're trying to increase revenue on the patients, and they're the payers now, not the insurance company, based on that. Okay. 1% versus 4%. This one, so people have talked about margins, and sort of the idea in a nonprofit is about a 4% margin in order to meet the mission-based kinds of thing. That's kind of what people talk about. Some of your organizations are way higher. I don't know, 10%. That's Michigan's was like that, 10-15%. Through this first 6 months of the fiscal year at Lehigh Valley Health Network, it was negative for the first time in a long time. That's why all those cuts occurred. We're hearing that we're probably going to turn it around and get to about a positive 2% with all the adjustments that are being made. But those adjustments are a lot of work. And really, if we don't do that, what's going to happen to our community health benefits? that are really significant. We hosted the International Street Medicine Conference in Allentown. Next year is in Stockholm. So Stockholm, Allentown. So some of the stuff we do is pretty cool, but that's why it matters in our nonprofit world. All right, 2% versus 28%. Do you remember which one that was? Okay. Yeah. 2% versus 28%. So 2% last year was the amount of capitated payers in our network, in our area. 2%. They've upped it to about 28% for the next fiscal year. That's how far behind we are in the bubble in Allentown. But that just goes to show how different our worlds are across here. And so before I went into medicine, was an evolutionary biologist. Some of you don't know this about me, but I studied birds in Indiana and all kinds of fun stuff like that. In evolutionary biology, there's something called, you've heard of it, survival of the fittest, and biodiversity. And if you are if you have a model of survival or fitness to the next generation, it's not because it's perfect. It's because you survive to the next generation. And the more different models we have out there, the more likely you are to survive into the next generation, because there's diversity. So fewer dodo birds and more European starlings that can adapt to eating garbage, whatever. So the idea is that with all the things I've heard in this room today and last week, we have all kinds of different models. Which is the way that we're going to survive? How is it? Is it more capitation? Is it online visit? I don't know. So this is what. So I'm going to be almost done with my slides, but what is our model, and where are we in that survival curve? Because I think we're going out of business the way we are. I don't think it's sustainable. And I don't know what the right model is. So do we have enough diversity so that some model, direct primary care, whatever it may be? Okay. The last number is another number here. 1.5 million. Does anyone know what that number is? I bet you do. Yeah.
The value of a family doctor to a hospital.
That's right. That's exactly right. So there's a Sullivan-Cotter kind of number where, downstream revenue. Okay. So we are loss leaders. We have a network investment, but we mean something downstream. And one of the pushes locally, that 20%, that is the rate of out-migration in our network. So how many of your organizations mandate internal referrals? Ours does now. Ours does now.
Loosely.
Yeah, ours does now. And why do people refer externally when you're a family physician? This is the fun thing, right? It's because the patient can get in sooner, they have a relationship, or the service isn't offered, or it's convenient to them location-wise. So it's not without good reason, but so the organization's putting pressure on primary care to address the revenue loss by challenging the referral pattern that they're doing the best for their patients on. I always thought that was skewed, and I advocate, I'm like, talk to the specialists about their access and not managing slightly elevated TSHs and seeing a PSA every 6 months for no reason and bogging up the access for the real complex patients, adrenal insufficiency or whatever, stuff like that. All right, so those are some numbers, and I just pulled some headlines, local, national. So this is the top one. This is the headline that sort of gave me my bad day. 70 positions. Actually, there were more than that cut, but they just basically left unfilled positions and eliminated them, so they'll never be filled. And that's because of falling payments. That's the payment thing. And also, there's a lot of local competition. That's the world we live in. So we heard already, yesterday about what's happening in Pennsylvania. Lots of mergers and all kinds of things, people combining and forming these networks, and it's just a constant thing. And then there's Amazon and other people. Just the world is so changing rapidly. I don't know who's with who tomorrow versus today, and we want to be doctors. So back to that survival thing. Okay, how do we adapt in healthcare? Okay, so Radio Shack. What was Radio Shack's business model? An icon, right? I used to go there and get like resistors, believe it or not. Yeah? Circuit City, right? Borders. Ann Arbor companies used to love going to Borders. They're gone. Amazon killed probably those top three. They killed, actually Sears too. Kodak. I remember buying a film camera. I remember that fondly. Talked to a person who worked at Kodak. You know Kodak developed the digital photography? Yeah. And they said, no, it'll never go. Right? So they lost it. Blockbuster Video. Who's got VHS tapes in their basement? I still have some. All right. But on the bottom here, I'm just going to point out, there's Toledo Hospital. What happened to the family medicine department at Toledo Hospital? Does everyone know the residency program? They just cut them, right? Yeah.
So Grant, I know one of the guys who was at Kodak, and his version of that is that management didn't listen carefully and was unwilling to look forward. They were looking back at making film rather than looking forward to what the customers wanted. So it wasn't, they knew what they had, they didn't do it.
Sure.
And it was leadership.
You could say that for all of these things, really. With Blockbuster, Netflix was there. We don't need that. We have stores. Right? And then Manor Care was just in the news yesterday. They're restructuring their debt. They're not going out of business, they say. They're going to stay open. But other health systems that have gone bankrupt. So this happens in our industry too. And if we're not careful, we'll be the next Blockbuster. Toys R Us. Yesterday, Toys R Us gone. No more Toys R Us. So things like that. Just if we don't do it, we will not survive. So what does that mean for us, and where is it going to go? So that's all I'm going to say. I want to hear the discussion. We've talked about some of this before. So, anyways.
So Grant,
Yeah.
I think an important question is, what does a sustainable organization look like, and what organizations are there that have survived more than 100 years? There's only 5 or 10 in the world.
Hudson Bay Company, although it doesn't look the
And
same.
Shell Oil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shell Oil is 300 years old, I think. And it's nimbleness and adaptability. Redefining their business as the market changes, just as Dick was saying, somebody was saying down here a minute ago. Not recognizing that the market is shifting, and not recognizing what they need to do to lead that effort, rather than follow that.
Well, so where are we in healthcare in that nimbleness? And if we don't do it, someone will do it for us.
So just a comment. I happen to know about the ProMedica Toledo very, very well. Without going into all the detail, I was in the middle behind the scenes because I knew the residency director there. So the CEO of the hospital lied to his board and got caught in the lie. And the lie was that the family medicine residency program was the loss leader and they were losing money and we can't afford that. Well, it turned out that that wasn't true, but and he got caught, as I said, with that. So when you use the concept of family medicine as the loss leader, that mental model is the start of the death spiral. You are the cutting edge of the sword. Without you, there is no, that 1.5 million, there's none of that. There's none of the downstream stuff. And I think that's a piece of the problem is the sort of internal mental models that we have that describe the value, to Ralph's point, of what you're doing in the adaptiveness and the adaptive capacity. I think that's in general more true within family medicine, within an organization than it is within many of the other areas, which is a value to the system in these kind of turbulent, changing times. So I think coming back, Grant, to the issues that you're raising, it's sort of corporately figuring out what really are we about, what value do we really deliver, and then having the metrics. And the other thing I will say is one of the strategies we used when I was at Ohio State, which some years ago is we got the C-suite into the inpatient, family medicine inpatient service so they could see what it looked, what their own system looked. They have no clue what the systems look like in terms of care delivery. Why does it cost so much money to support a family physician, those numbers? They have no clue. In trying to verbally describe that, you got to grab their bodies, invite them in, take them into the exam room, take them into the inpatient service, so they can experience it. It transforms how they think about your value.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, the thing that, the question I have for you, if you want to compare, and I think it's a really interesting idea what you did up there, Graham, is like, look, these companies went out of business, are we one of those companies? You know, most industries don't reinvent themselves. You know, the stagecoach manufacturers didn't become car manufacturers with the internal combustion engine. So the question is, but the people that have gone on, Kodak or these others, Amazon, they changed the business model, or they changed the, you know, they used technology to change the business model, or they recast their business. Kodak was in the film business, people wanted pictures, right, or what have you. So the question I have, I mean, I think that, are you asking, is there a different business model for healthcare, or should there be a different business model for primary care? And if so, what breaks the fundamental primary man-hour business model of primary care? You can't take care of a patient if you're not seeing them. You know, so the only maybe you could do is actually increase the value of the time you're not seeing them, and say put a value on health, because less time with your doctor is actually greater health. I'm supposing that. I'm not saying that's true. So I mean, is there some way to recast your business model? Is that what that was the point?
So yeah, I think it's a little more complex why an organization doesn't make an argument. And this is, in this case, it's inpatient-heavy reliance on inpatient. That ambulatory is actually rolling in money relative to budget in prior years, so actually doing fabulously well. And it's actually the inpatient reimbursement rates that's the model that's changing. So it's in this organization, maybe delayed transition to more ambulatory, preventive, non-acute care based management. But yeah, I also think that what's our transactional unit, and how do we optimize that? I feel like I have to demonstrate my value, my department's value to my organization, because if you look at it through a CFO's eyes and they're not very informed about the bigger picture, they're going to say, you lose this money. And I know that seems like people should get that. I'm not convinced this particular CFO does. So how do we demonstrate value in a financial way to someone who doesn't see it any other way? And I like your idea. I think I'm going to invite them to come follow us and put it. I think it's a great idea.
I think that point that Ralph is making about value and the value proposition is so important, because it's different in everybody's eyes, including your CFOs.
Wow.
Thanks, Grant. Good job. Tim, why don't you hook up? What we might try to do, if we can, if Tim, I think, is going to try to be concise, and maybe we can squeeze